Ball and RFK Jr. go at it. What are the results and who won the debate? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. I'm Vin.
I'm sorry.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist optionism. Okay, that was pretty terrible. We've got technical difficulties at Middle America, as you can see. Our normal introduction didn't have our normal introduction, but that's okay because we're back at it. Okay. A lot of you guys reached out to me. By the way, let me introduce myself. I'm Vin. My partner in crime is Sorry. We have a little channel, humble little channel here where we talk about the latest. Shout out to the big homie Ben Moen. Shout out to the big homie Ian Kirby. If you want to continue the conversation, we are a free speech environment at facebook.com/America Middle. As I said, it's a free speech environment, and so people are going to say what's on their minds, and sometimes that's not the thing that other people want to hear. It is what it is. There's nothing I could do to control that. I mean, there is something I could do to control that, which is to essentially hyper police speech, but we don't believe in that here. So there's that. Okay. Now that the housework is out of the way, shout out to the big homie Justin Pramis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, homie. Shout out to the big homie Ranter Matt. Okay, so somebody sent me a message, and this is usually how all Middle America episodes start. Believe it or not, I was watching an old Vintage Story reacting to Manson when this popped up. Okay. Shout out to the big homie Marilyn Manson. Praying for the homie. Okay. All right, guys. Now here we are. So apparently, Krystal Ball had an interview with RFK Jr. RFK Jr., by the way, is a serious candidate that Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump need to take seriously, in my opinion. And I think one of the clearest examples of that is the fact that is the way that corporate media is covering him and the way that corporate media is talking about him. Letting folks know from the beginning that it's impossible for him to win and it's a pipe dream and all the rest of it. And if the mainstream media is doing that, you can know for sure then that the other person, that the person that they're talking about is actually a viable candidate and they're doing what they've always done. I don't know much about RFK, so I don't really have much of a position yet on him. The most I've heard about RFK is that somehow he's an anti-vaxxer. Again, I don't know much about RFK, but apparently there was a very controversial meeting he had with Krystal today or whatever. So let's check it out. Apparently, according to Ian, his voice sounds terrible. So let's check it out. Here's RFK with Krystal Kalinsky, because she recently got married. Shout out to her. Marriage is always a good thing. So let's check it out. Krystal Ball, RFK. Let's see what happens.
So let me ask you about vaccines. This is an area where you and I have significant differences. And, just to level with you on this, like a lot of what you say I really respond to. I think you're a very genuine person. But the across the board, whether you want to call it vaccine skepticism or anti-vax advocacy, which has been a central part.
All right, I'm back. Went too crazy on the sound effects. You got to repent for that. He said, I'm pretty sure it's Kyle Ball. Anyway, shout out to Kyle Ball or Krystal Kalinsky, whoever they are. Let's keep it. Yeah, is Ramaswamy considered a serious contender for the right? I don't think so. I think Ramaswamy is contending for a vice president spot. I don't think he's really seriously thinking he's going to go up against Donald Trump. So here we go. This is Krystal. That's apparently RFK. RFK is apparently an anti-vaxxer. Again, I don't know. I don't know what like an anti-vaxxer is anymore. I don't know what I thought I knew what an anti-vaxxer was about 2 years ago, but I don't anymore. But here we go. Let's let the man speak for himself. He can clear it up, inshallah.
Of what you've been up to for the past number of years. For me personally, it's an issue, and it's a real sort of red line. And I know I'm not alone in that, especially running in a Democratic primary.
Vaccines are a red line? So if a guy says like, yo, like, I'm not sure that, what kind of vaccine is she talking? Because this is the other thing, is that, are we talking about like mumps, measles, and rubella? Because those are actual vaccines. Or are we talking about the COVID-19 vaccine, which does not do, we know now, does not do what it was originally advertised as, and what everybody in the media was telling us, that the COVID vaccine stops people, it stops the transmission, the transference of the vaccine. So if you all of these things into one bucket, that's problem number one. There's a difference between, let's say, the polio vaccine versus this one. The difference is, if you get the polio vaccine, you will not contract polio. So to use the term vaccine like across the board, like I get it in a general sense, but if you're going to talk about like a red line, like I will not vote for you, like I think you need to delineate a little clearer what you mean by that, by vaccine in that context. We continue.
There are going to be other millions of people like me who have similar concerns. So how do you win them over? What's your message to people who think like I do?
Well, but just tell me where you...
Okay, apparently RFK has some issue with his voice. I don't know if he's got a cold or if this is just his voice. I did hear him on Jimmy Dore one time. He sounded fine, so I don't know what's going on. No, Vin, they changed the definition of vaccine for the definition of vaccine for COVID. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not sure that I understand what an anti-vaxxer is right now. Correct. Because it seems like the definitions have changed. All I'm saying is we can't lump the term vaccine into one big thing, because we're not talking about the same thing. I think if you don't get your child a polio vaccine, if you don't get your child vaccinated relative to polio, I think that's an unwise, unscientific decision. If you get your child vaccinated for COVID, I also think that's an unwise, unscientific decision. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't put both of them in the same category, but it's hard because the term vaccine is being used. Okay, we continue. So now he's going to start explaining his issue with vaccine. Okay, thanks for that, Angie. He's got vocal dystopia since he was in his early 40s. Shit, that sucks. All right, we continue. That would be kind of cool, though, if you had a president with that kind of, I think it gives him a little character. I don't know.
In person, but the across the board, whether you want to call it vaccine skepticism or anti-vax advocacy, which has been a central part of what you've been up to for the past number of years.
By the way, does anybody have any intel as to RFK's background? Does he have a virologist background? Does he have however you say that word, the people who specialize in epidemics, like, does he have a background to where he's qualified to comment on these things, or what? We continue.
For me personally, it's an issue, and it's a real sort of red line. And I know I'm not alone in that, especially running in a Democratic primary. There are going to be other millions.
Oh, I've never seen this Angie Gracie person, but this is some good intel. The vocal dystopia that he has is a side effect of the flu vaccine, which he used to get, and it says right on the insert of the vaccine, which we never get to see. That's interesting, Angie. Angie, do you have a screenshot or anything like that? You know how we get... I don't know if you... I love to validate everything with proof. What you're saying, though, could provide some context for why this dude would be against vaccines. But again, I haven't heard it from him yet. Let's see.
Of people like me who have similar concerns. So how do you win them over? What's your message to people who think like I do?
Well, but just tell me where you think I got it wrong.
Well, I think you get it wrong when you draw a correlation between the rise of things like autism and the introduction of vaccines when there isn't hard scientific evidence tying those things together.
Okay, so platform one, apparently this guy has done the whole autism vaccine thing. As far as what I know, that's a debunked myth, that's not true. And to be honest with you, I'd much rather my kid be autistic than contract mumps, measles, and rubella. I mean, autism is not a fatal malady. I've got 8 kids, and I think about this a lot, especially because the other platform I'm on, we skew very high on autism and trans. So in our community, autistic and trans people are are overrepresented from the national average, and I'm not sure why that is. But it does make me think to myself, I have 8 kids. What are the odds that none of them have autism? I don't believe that autism is some horrible, whatever. So if it's between my child dying or contracting some horrible disease or something like that versus him being autistic, I'd take that. I'd take that deal any second of the day. I want to see what he has to say about it, though. Interesting.
How do you know? Let me ask you this. How do you know there's not a hard scientific evidence?
Well, because the one major study that purported to show that was retracted, and the scientist who conducted it was,
Now, what you're doing now,
basically
Krystal,
fraudulently created. Listen,
no.
Hold on.
You're
but I
raising this issue.
don't want to get in a debate with you about this because you've spent your life pulling out this study. And that I will.
Okay, I don't understand that. You bring the guy to the show. It's a political show, so obviously debate is always going to be part of politics. It should be, which is what you guys have been advocating for at Breaking Point since you guys started. You come on here and you tell him that you can't vote for him because his red line is the vaccines. He says, okay, what have I said that's wrong? So she brings up the autism vaccine correlation, which is perfectly in bounds, works on both sides. She then says, you agreed with a report that has basically been retracted by the people that drew it up. He says, okay, well, what's the scientific evidence that I'm wrong? She goes, I can't get into a debate with you. We've been doing this your entire life. I don't want to get bogged down in this. You made the accusation against him. What? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I have a very hard time gauging people's motives from thousands of miles away. I don't know exactly what her motive is. I'm just saying, Krystal, this is irrational. It's irrational to get into a debate with somebody, ask them a question, and then when they start answering at the beginning, I mean, he has been talking for 8 seconds. When he started to answer, she interrupted and said, I don't want to get into the science. Huh? What? Weird, man. You see this when Christians say oh, if evolution is real, why are there still monkeys? And then you pull them aside and say, well, they don't really say we come from monkeys. They're talking about apes, and there's common ancestry and things like that. It's a little bit more complicated than that, natural selection. They're not saying that a monkey that just decided to become a human. That's not what they're saying. This is what they will shut you up. They won't let you finish. That's what happens when somebody has a religious commitment to an idea. When you have a religious commitment to an idea, you're not going to let the other people answer you. I was on with a famous atheist one time. And I said, Mr. Famous Atheist person, you keep saying you don't believe in God because there's no evidence. He goes, that's right, there's no evidence. I said, mashallah, okay. I said, tell me what your standards of evidence are. What would need to happen for you to say, okay, that's evidence? You know how he responded to me? He said, I don't know. I said, this is fascinating. You're saying you don't believe in God because there's no God. I ask you what could make you believe in God. You say evidence. I say, what are your standards of evidence? You don't know what they are. My point is, everybody does this. This is completely irrational. That atheist guy had a religious commitment to his atheism. The Christian guy has a religious commitment to his version of science. And Krystal obviously has a religious commitment to this whole vaccine discussion. And she has a right to have that commitment. But if you're going to bring the guy on the show, on a talk show, where the premise is you can debate and say your points, then let the man make his point, Krystal. What the hell? We continue.
Let me just tell you.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Let me just tell you.
I've
listened to hours of interviews with you with an open mind, and I'm not persuaded. Now, maybe I'm wrong. That's possible. I'll hold it out there. People can watch. I thought Megyn Kelly did a phenomenal interview with you that went through all these claims piece by piece by piece. I really encourage people to watch that whole exchange because
I don't have a problem with that. My problem is you made that the red line for why you, and by extension us, shouldn't vote for the man. So if you're going to make that the red line, then give him the opportunity to make his case. What the hell?
We won't be able to do it justice here in the 5 minutes we have left. But there are going to be people like me.
In the 5 minutes you have left, you're a YouTube show. What do you mean the 5 minutes you have left? It's a YouTube show. That's the entire reason that you guys are taking over corporate media. Because in corporate media, they get to say that. Because they only have like 42 minutes or whatever. They're on a specific time crunch. You know good and well that if this went on for 15 minutes, we'd all watch it. There's no time crunch. What are you talking about? I've never seen her act like this before. So I'm just going to I've never seen her act like this before. This is some like TYT shit. We continue.
And who see this as an issue, and the fact that it's been such a central part of your advocacy means I can't just sort of put it to the side and say, oh, well, I'll just ignore, this piece that's been really important to you in your life. So you're running in a Democratic primary. You have a lot of people who feel even more strongly than me who think that, Dr. Fauci is a hero and all of these things.
I don't know any human being that believes Dr. Fauci is a hero. I personally believe that he should spend the rest of his life in prison. I think he lied on numerous occasions when he was being interrogated by, I forgot what the guy's name was, the super libertarian guy. I think he lied to that dude numerous times. I think he was definitely part and parcel with the gain-of-function research. And if anything, there ought to be a serious criminal investigation of that human being. I don't know anybody who believes that Mr. Fauci is some sort of hero. Where is this? Now, Rand Paul. Now look, there might be people that believe that this dude is a hero, and I've just been swimming in middle America because y'all are my people. I don't know anybody in middle America that is like pro Fauci. So I think her argument is, I'm not going to let you talk about this and defend your position. I had to bring it up because that's what you're known for, but I'm going to bring it up as like some like cloud over you for people who aren't familiar with you, and then I'm not going to let you defend yourself. So all they have in their head now with you is the first thing I heard about RFK, he's an anti-vaxxer and he's one of those crazy people. That's it. I mean, wow.
How are you going to persuade them? How are you going to reach them? And what is your message to them?
Well, first of all, I'm not leading with, my opinions about vaccines. What I say to people is, show me where I got it wrong.
Unbelievable. Show me where I got it wrong. Now, by the way, let me give you a full disclosure relative to the vaccine situation. None of my kids are vaxxed with the COVID vax, but me and Soraya both got vaxxed. Okay? Anybody that can look at middle America in 2020, 2021, I was, I'm not going to say pro-mask, but I was mask cooperative. I work from home, right? And so we didn't have a problem with shelter in place or whatever they called it. I didn't have a problem with any of that stuff. My red line was government mandating any of those three things. Because as I was saying in 2020, 2021, I'm making a correlation between this and the USA Patriot Act. There was some one-off horrible situation that happened. Everybody was terrified. Nobody knew what was going on. It was the first time this has ever happened. And so we've got to have this Patriot Act, and everybody went along with it. And then that kind of danger kind of, quote, went away, but the Patriot Act is still here in full effect. So my thing was, I'm good with shelter in place, good with masks, good with vaccines. My red line is, do not let the government tell us that they have the right to force us to do this. So that was my position. But I was definitely pro-COVID vax when this whole thing went down. Now, if you ask me again, would I get vaxxed again? No, I would not. I would not get vaccinated again, knowing what I know now. But the point of me saying all that is to say, it is insane to call anybody who, especially after the revelations of the CDC and all these other things where Johnson & Johnson was trying to get the Johnson & Johnson was trying to get their documents basically redacted until like 2075 or some shit. Like, these are horrible, horrible people. And so for Krystal to act like, how are you going to convince all these Democrats who just love Anthony Fauci and have like 15 vaccines? Please. This tells me that you haven't been on the street, or you haven't been touching the grass, Krystal. This is what it sounds like to me.
Tell me that where I got my science wrong. I've written books about this. I wrote a book about the link between thimerosal and autism that has, I think, 450 distilled scientific studies that confirm and validate that hypothesis, and 1,400 references. And if I got something wrong, show me where it is.
But I think people have shown you where.
That's all I say about everything. You guys know how we are in Middle America. I'm not some big educated individual. I have a high school education. So I say all the time, like, of course I could be wrong. Of course I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, show me. You don't believe, you think it's debatable, for example, that a fetus is a human being. I know that it's not debatable that a fetus is a human being. I have data. If you disagree with me, show me your data. I know that there's no scientific or linguistic difference between a baby and a fetus. I know that. But people have disagreed with me. So I said, okay, well, if there's no, well, then show me. Just show me. That's all. That's all I care about. I don't care about being right. I don't care about none of that shit. Just show me. And then if I'm wrong, I will get on here. I'll shoot another video and talk about it. You guys know it's happened before. All we're saying is show me. You brought up the issue. Now, Krystal, I paused it. I'm gonna hit play now, and I'm gonna see if Krystal shows him. Because he made a claim that he had 1,400 reference points in that book, 400 of which validated one of these chemicals that was correlated to autism somehow. Show me where he's wrong. We continue.
Things are wrong, but you don't want to hear it. Is because I've seen, numerous fact checks. Dr. Vinay Prasad, who we, really respect on the COVID vaccine. He went through your interview with All In. He did a fact check. I mean, it's not.
And I did a fact check of Vinay, and you should read that.
I will take a look at it. But I don't think that it's fair to say nobody has ever pointed out anything that's.
But you haven't. Prasad's not on the show. You're on the show, and you're telling him that this is a red line. So you need to go and tell us what the problem is. Why is it so difficult to understand? Like, I'm not mad at Krystal. I think Krystal's okay. I mean, it's her, Brianna, and Anna, and Emma Vigeland. I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, I don't understand the motivation here. I think what I'm struggling with in this video is I don't understand the motivation of like what she's doing. She's asking him these questions, and then she won't let him answer. He says, okay, prove me wrong. She clearly doesn't have the expertise or the knowledge to come with something to show that he was wrong. So then she goes back to an appeal to authority. But even in the appeal to authority, there's a logical appeal to authority and an irrational one. But even in her appeal to authority, that gets refuted because he fact-checked the guy that she was appealing to. Just a complete mess. Just a complete mess.
That's been wrong.
Well, here's what people complain about what I say. And again, I'm not leading on this issue, so people can either take it or leave it. But if you want to, what you just said about me, that I'm sort of hard-headed and stubborn and just won't give in, you're wrong about that. If somebody shows me where I'm wrong, I'm going to correct it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I just said. Yes, exactly. You know, I got to tell you, I got some affinity for RFK because I feel like him a lot. I was just in a debate with a very, very important individual in my life, and we were talking about something relative to the scientific, relative to science, about how local realism is no longer true. Well, it's never been true, but now it's clearly defined. Local realism is no longer true. So we were going back and forth on this thing, and I said, listen, all I need you to do, because he's like, look, you're an amateur, blah, blah, blah. These physicists disagree with you. And I'm like, listen, I'm not coming up with this stuff. I'm telling you what these physicists are saying. There's a debate between the two of them, and one of them lost. Einstein lost. Sorry. Spooky action at a distance. I'm sorry. Your man was wrong. He was wrong. Okay, so in this particular situation, Einstein is wrong. We now know more definitively than Einstein does. And the guy's like, And so then I asked him the question. I said, listen, bro, I just need you to get me a justification for the concept of materialism. The concept that matter preceded consciousness. What is your definitive proof that presupposition should be held to? His response to me was, you just never admit when you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? If you can't refute somebody, say I can't refute them. Don't say things like that. Unbelievable. I will change my position publicly if you come to me with facts. I've demonstrated that. Go look on the most important issues to me on the planet, like abortion, for example. I was wrong on a particular issue with abortion. I shot a video the next day refuting myself for 45 minutes because I don't care. I don't care what you think of me, positive or negative, and I don't give a damn. The truth. We cannot do anything for or against the truth. The truth is invincible. I don't own the truth, and I am owned by the truth. So if I'm wrong about something, there is no shame in saying I was wrong or I didn't know, and that's what this guy is saying. We continue.
And, we have probably the most robust fact-checking operation now in North America. I have 350 PhD scientists and MD physicians on, CHD's advisory board, including until recently Luc Montagnier won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus. Chris Portier, who's the head of the National Toxicity Program at NIH, formerly, probably the top toxicologist in America. And if
Okay, I'm sorry. That's impressive to me, and I gotta tell you, if you are not looking with the side eye, they call it vaccine skepticism. If you're not looking with the side eye at the entire operation, then you haven't been paying attention. These people told us the vaccine was going to do X, Y, and Z. There was no accountability for that, y'all. The CDC left out the largest chunk of their research relative to COVID and survivability rates. They purposely redacted that information to the general public because they felt we weren't ready for it. That's what they said. These are the same people that are at the helms of all these things. So now you should look at all of them with the side eye, like, what the? You should. Now, I'm not saying that this guy is right. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm not saying that he's right. I'm not educated enough in this situation to know whether he's right or wrong. But what I do know is what I've experienced with the pharmaceutical government complex, the pharmaceutical media industrial complex. I have experienced that along with the rest of y'all for the last 2 years. So if you're not looking at that whole complex with the side eye, I don't know. I'm not saying that vaccines aren't great. I'm not saying that. I'm glad we no longer have polio. I had a dude in my church one time. He had polio, and he was really passionate about vaccines for obvious reasons. But I don't know, man. I don't understand what the play is here with Krystal. I don't get it.
I were saying things that were scientifically unsound, those people would not stay with us. What I would say to you is show me where I got it wrong. Show me a study that where I got wrong, and I will change my position. Science is fluid. It's not an embarrassment to me if there's a new scientific study that I haven't seen that comes out and says I'm wrong. That's what you're supposed to do with science. But what I'm saying to you...
Thank you! That's what you should do in journalism as well. You don't own the truth. The truth owns you. You cannot do anything for or against the truth. We're talking about ultimate reality, y'all. This idea, we got into an argument, I'm right, so I feel better than you. Like, no, that's not it. I just feel good that we're on the side of ultimate reality. There's no way to lose an argument. Because if the other person's right, then they've just helped you see reality for what it is. This is how people who are on, this is how they think. Krystal's thinking like a politician because she was one. Don't forget that. Before she got into all this shit, she was a politician. Krystal Ball was a politician. Don't ever forget that. We continue. Damn, Krystal.
Nobody has done that. If an A. Prasad, when he did his piece, if he showed me science that was valid, I would say I would change my position.
If we got the two of you together,
read my response to him.
So you say this isn't what you're leading with, but
Vin, what part do you feel pride takes in the collective mind? Do you feel that the people held on believing mandates and of course, this is all ego. All ego. All of it. Yeah, and let me tell you something. Psychological operators know how to use people's egos against them. That's what was going on. And different regions have different profiles as to what makes somebody... It's very... But yeah, no, absolutely. This is all human pride. And that's why there have been... Look, if you've been doing this kind of work for like a year, you're going to be wrong on something. You notice how many YouTubers like issue retractions? People just go on like nothing happened. Why? Because their ego. They're not worried about telling people, like getting people closer to ultimate reality. This is a ego stroke for people to be on YouTube and all this shit. So yeah, I get to say what I want, blah blah blah, and I can be wrong as hell. But when I was wrong and everybody was all like cheering me on, I can't go back now and correct myself. But yeah, man, there needs to be. If you're watching all of your favorite shows on YouTube or in network media and you love those people, but they've been going on for years and they never issue a retraction, they never issue a correction, so they've been perfect the entire time. Okay, all right, you believe that.
I just have to say, as someone who is watching your candidacy closely and is aware of the advocacy you've been doing and the organization that you are involved with, it's hard for me to believe this won't be an important part of how you govern. So I think that's the most important piece.
So he's saying, I don't lead with this as a topic. I want to talk about, healthcare or fixing Russia, Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. Or, the economy. I've never heard Krystal even talk in the last, 60 Breaking Points episodes. I haven't even heard her talk about the vaccines. Why all of a sudden are the vaccines like the central issue for her with this dude? We got a Russia, Ukraine. I don't know if you know this, but over there in Eastern European, we got people killing their own family members. You do realize that Russia, Ukraine is a familial conflict. It'd be good forget about nuclear war and all that, which is terrible, but it would just be good for human beings if we could find a way to get those brothers to stop killing each other. That's kind of big on the agenda. The fucking economy in the United States, I don't know about you, that's kind of big on the agenda for me. I still have people in this country dying because they didn't have to die because there's preventable maladies that they have, but they can't afford it. So we let our own countrymen, we have to bury our own countrymen over this shit. So when this guy shows up, this is what you talk about. We're up to minute 507. I haven't heard anything about Russia, never heard anything about the economy, never heard anything about North Korea, foreign policy, nothing. We're talking about vaccines. But not talking about vaccines either, because when the guy wants to talk, you keep cutting him off. Holy shit. I've never seen this from Krystal before in my life. I don't know what's going on with her. I don't know if somebody threatened her or what. This is just an odd... literally, like, I'm confused. There's been a lot of, like, anger and all this directed toward Krystal. At this point, my guiding emotion right now is just confusion. I don't understand what's happening here. It's weird to me.
Piece for people to get who you have to accept there are going to be people like me who just don't agree with you on this. You know, certainly understand that there are many who do think that the vaccines that we have are more beneficial than harmful, that, you know, got their kids vaccinated and are happy for that decision. So how is this going to impact the way that you govern, or does it not at all?
I mean, I'm going to govern according to, you know, what evidence-based medicine. That's, you know, that's.
So
You notice, Sagar? Look at Sagar here. This dude right here. Watch.
Govern according to, you know, what evidence-based medicine. That's.
He's like, yeah. That's just common sense, right? You just go where the evidence takes you. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay. How could that? What's up, Sadie? Sadie in the house. How could that possibly be wrong? How could that kind of response possibly be wrong?
No,
let me give a specific question. If there's another pandemic, in the last pandemic, former President Trump, something we gave him a lot of credit for, he launched Operation Warp Speed. They had a whole of government approach. They used the mRNA technology that was developed using, you know, U.S. taxpayer dollars to get a vaccine out to the population as quickly as possible. How would your approach have?
Right. And now what we've found out about Operation Warp Speed, ma'am, is that, one, it did not do what you guys were saying it was doing. That is to say, stopping the contraction of the virus. And two, it has had some seriously adverse effect for people in the 19 to 45 range, which is, by the way, the range that the CDC specifically left out in their reporting to the public. Because we weren't ready for prime time, according to them. We did a show on that. And you know who else did a show on that, dear listener? Krystal fucking Ball, in which she was really upset at the CDC. And she said that's not their job to manage how we're going to react to the information. They should have just given us the information. I agree with you, Krystal. But why are you now acting like none of that shit occurred? President Trump had Operation Warp Speed. Right. And even his own supporters turned against him for that. This is one of the things where this is another retraction that I had to make. Because when I saw how because I initially thought Trump supporters are mindless zombies. They've just been completely, you know, hypnotized by this dude and whatever. But Trump supporters turned against Trump relative to the vaccine. He tried to bring it up a bunch of times and take credit for it. They booed him to his face. You got to give it to the Trump supporters for that. I'll give it to them for that. But this right here, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're saying. This guy's saying I'm not going to make that like the central part of my candidacy. As we said, there is Russia, Ukraine. There's fucking North Korea still a player. We're still in Niger and all these other places, militaristically speaking. Maybe we can talk to this guy about his foreign policy. Maybe we could talk about maybe a child tax credit back for these struggling moms. Maybe we could do something for women, considering the collapse of Roe v. Wade, and we've got 14 states that have trigger laws that made abortion essentially illegal. Bless God. But can we do something now for the girls that are now completely and totally terrified? Can we do anything for them? Can we talk about that? Nope. We're going to talk about how he feels about vaccines. SubhanAllah. What are you going to do? And then she says, what if there's another epidemic? I don't know, Krystal. How many epidemics, how many pandemics have rifled through the United States of America in our hundreds of years of history? What are you talking about? What if there's another pandemic? What are you going to do? So what's he supposed to say, Krystal? Well, I'm going to come up with another spurious, rushed solution for that problem, and then all these dudes are going to get myocarditis and then fucking collapse on the football field and peak physical condition. Holy shit! What kind of world are we in right now? Help us, Lord. Let's continue.
My approach would have been a science-based approach.
Which means what?
Which means and a medicine-based approach, the approach that has been used for, and approved for decades. you look first at therapeutics that are off the shelf, and you look at the efficacy of those. I mean, what I would have done if I...
Oh, therapeutics that are off the shelf, like that are cheap and are affordable. I wonder if there was any cheap, affordable therapeutic that had been used like throughout the world and was known as like a miracle drug for like decades. I wonder, does anybody know if there was anything like that that would have helped us during COVID? I don't know. Let's, we continue.
In power then, I would have created an information grid, because now we have this internet that is supposed to benefit us and has become instead an instrument for, totalitarian control. But let's use it for something.
Okay, I'm feeling this guy. Okay, you see what he said? He said the internet was something that, theoretically could promote freedom or whatever, and unfortunately, it's being used for control. Exactly. And maybe there's something we can do to give the power back to the people. Is that possible? Is that possible? I don't know. All right, we continue. The drug I was referring to, by the way, was called hydroxychloroquine, which Anderson Cooper and the rest of the experts over at CNN called horse dewormer or whatever. And then the other dude went to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan said, "Yo, your man's a liar. Why'd your man lie like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, he lied." Gupta, whatever the guy's name is. It's mind-boggling to me that this is the issue that she is fighting over. What is going on? What is happening? Jeez, I'm crow. We continue.
Good. Let's link all 15 million scientists, doctors, frontline physicians all over the world.
Yeah, it was hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Correct. Both of which have been used in other countries to great effect to stymie the progress of COVID. Unfortunately, for Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, ivermectin is extremely cheap. The horse one wasn't hydroxy. That was, yeah. Okay, so hydroxychloroquine was not called horse paste. It was the ivermectin that was called the horse paste. See, we do real-time corrections here in Middle America, dear listener. Thank you for that, Ranter Matt. We continue. By the way, go subscribe to Ranter Matt's channel. He's got a better YouTube channel than mine, actually. Put Ranter Matt in there and click, and you'll also get commentary with a little bit more, with a little less emotion and more rationality than your brother here. We continue.
And find out what they're doing to treat this new respiratory virus.
Brilliant.
And find out what they're saying is working and not working, and then test that with science, and then turn it instantaneously into protocols and recommendations for other scientists.
So would a vaccine development be part of that or no?
Well, I don't think the vaccine worked. I think, if you think it worked.
Right. Again, he's got 2 minutes and 47 seconds left on this segment. She spent 7 minutes and 3 seconds on this bullshit. And then she goes, well, would you have come up with a vaccine like Trump? Trump did not come up with a vaccine, Krystal. It did not do what we wanted it to do. It did not stop the spread of COVID. It gave a bunch of people between 19 and 40 fucking heart issues. Myocarditis. That's what it did. That's where we are. What are you talking about? That was a failure on Trump's part. The Operation Warp Speed thing is an example of what not to do if we get hit with a pandemic. Rush, have a bunch of fear, and tell these people to pull a rabbit out of the hat out of nowhere. And then now you've got football players at the peak physical condition collapsing on the field. And you're sitting here talking to this dude and you're saying, oh, so you would take a scientific and a measured approach. You would use logic, reason, science, math, and things of that nature. You would consult with all the experts in the field on the thing, and then you would come up with what works and what doesn't work, and you would look for therapeutics. Okay, fine. But what about Trump? Can you outdo what Donald Trump did? What world are we in when Krystal Ball is saying, are you going to handle this as well as Donald Trump? Subhanallah. What is going on?
And try to explain to me the countries that were unvaccinated did much better than our.
Many of those countries, because there are a lot of different factors.
And now Krystal's ready to talk. When he said, show me where I was wrong, she's like, well, I'm not going to get into that. But when he says, why are these countries, these third world countries, these shithole countries, how come they did better than us and they're not vaccinated? How come their football players aren't collapsing on the field of fucking national TV because of myocarditis?
In various countries. So a lot of those countries, as you pointed out before,
why do we have the highest death rate in the world by far?
I think there are a lot of factors that may go into that. One of them is the fact that we are disproportionately obese as a society. We have...
Right. Because as the folks who signed the declaration, there was, like, I think it's up to like 20,000 now medical experts all over the world. It's called the Great Something Declaration, where they basically said mega old people, keep them inside for a little bit, and really, really, really obese people, they're at risk. They should be vaxxed. They should practice social distancing. Everybody else is fine. We can leave everybody else to natural immunity. That's what the declaration said. So if we would have had this guy at the helm, I am certain that's where we would have went. But we're having this ridiculous conversation. And the other question is, what the fuck do you know, Krystal? Because, listen, terrorist attacks on the United States soil are way more frequent than a pandemic. Way more frequent than a pandemic. Why are you bringing up what he's going to do in some sort of once-in-a-lifetime situation? Is it because... I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. It's just a strange thing, dear listener, to spend 10 minutes on. Don't you think?
The negative health outcomes that you've been talking about. We don't go outside as much as countries, say in Africa. I mean, there are a lot of different factors that may play into that. But I will say, I
also got to say, Sacker, are you a man? Fuck, say something, bro. What are you doing? There's no way that Sager can agree with this line of questioning with her. There's no way. Why is he just sitting there with his hand, like, do something, bro? Good night. We continue.
Vaccines work in the way they were initially promised to prevent spread? No, I don't think so, especially once you got to later variants. But we have a lot of data that shows that in terms of reducing severe hospitalization and...
I understand that, Sadie, but mathematically speaking, what are the odds that we would have another global pandemic in 4 years? When does that happen? That's my question. She's talking about this. Listen, a 9/11, statistically speaking, is way more likely to happen under an RFK administration than another pandemic. I'm talking mathematically now. And even if a, quote, terrorist action is local, it obviously has national and global effects. We went into a 20-year war because of a 20-year war on terror where we terrorized the entire Muslim world for 20 years. It spent trillions of dollars and spent millions of gallons of blood for a situation that happened in the United States on one day in September. Okay? So what I'm saying is you're much more likely to see a terrorist attack on American soil if in an RFK presidency than you are to have a global pandemic that shuts down the entire planet. That was a once in a generation, once in a lifetime, once in an epic situation. She's interrogating him over a topic that he's probably not even going to deal with in his presidency should he become the president. And I just need to know why, because this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand the reasoning here.
Death, the vaccines were really important, and maybe there was a cost-benefit analysis.
I want to see that data. I know that's what the industry says.
There is lots of data.
Oh, that's what the industry. Boom, boom. See, it's all okay. Did you catch that? That's what the industry says. Did you notice that when he challenged her, he said, prove me wrong. She said, I don't want to get bogged down into science. Now he's starting to state his case, and now she wants to get bogged into the particulars. Isn't that interesting? Because what's happening now is Krystal is speaking in defense of Big Pharma. Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. So when he makes his argument and he looks across from her 5 feet away and says, prove what I'm saying is wrong, I'm not going to do that. So he starts talking and she starts defending the efficacy of the vaccine. And he goes, well, that's what the industry wants people to believe. It's clear to me that she brought him on to destroy him because he's a real threat. Okay, I have to rewind that because the implications of what I'm saying here is a little bit too much. It appears to me that Krystal's design in this interview is to discredit this man so that the establishment narrative, which is he has no chance of winning, will be validated. The problem that she has is that she is committing the same error that a lot of folks in the media commit, which is to say that the people watching her are stupid. These people truly believe that we can't see what's going on here. She truly believes. They cut out this segment specifically on their website. You know how, Joe Rogan does it. I'm too lazy to do it. When you do a 2-hour broadcast or whatever, and you break up little clips like the highlight clips. This was a highlight clip. Now look, if I'm the producer of the show, this thing is trending all over Twitter. I'm going to put it up there. But on the other hand, this makes her look really bad and really untrustworthy. And it makes it look like she's in the pockets of somebody. I'm saying that's what it makes it look like. And again, I would just remind you all, Krystal Ball was a politician. She ran for office. And on top of that, she also did mainstream media. So she knows how to talk and how to signal and how to whatever to certain people that she's willing to play ball. We continue.
And not just from here, from around the world, that shows the vaccine doses, and not just our vaccines, but ones that were created all around the world, reduce severe hospitalization and death. So
okay, fair. We got to go back. A naturally occurring pandemic like that would be rare, not so much. Not sure if this one was natural. I think all of us agree now that most likely what the lab leak theory is the most likely reality as to what transpired. But that, my friend, opens up a whole other. You don't have to super chat me to get me to talk. If you want to super chat, it's great. I usually I'll just post whatever people say if it like sticks out or it goes along or it's to the point that I have to, I'm not very good at generating super chats. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm pretty bad at that. But if you want to send them, come and welcome. But yeah, I look because I've got the comment section on this side. So anyway, if you have something that's pertinent and relevant, I'll post it. You don't have to super chat. Hold on to your money. We're all struggling right now anyway. I forgot what I was saying. That's for everybody, by the way. Like, I love the super chats, but I'll do my best to put your comment on the screen with or without the super chat. I'll definitely try to get to it if you do put out in super chat. I will definitely do my best to try to get your comment on there and addressed. But at the same time, all of us are struggling. So if you have something that you really want put on the thing, then repeat it a couple times and it'll probably end up on there. Okay. Let me. I agree. And of course, Applejack's gonna super. Applejack's actually my brother. Like in the real world. So yeah. All right. Here we go.
Doctors, frontline physicians all over the world, and find out what they're doing to treat this new respiratory virus. And find out what they're saying is working and not working, and then test that with science, and then turn it instantaneously into protocols and recommendations for other scientists.
So would a vaccine development be part of that or not?
Well, I don't think the vaccine worked. I think, if you think it worked, then try to explain to me the countries that were unvaccinated did much better than our.
Many of those countries, because there are a lot of different factors in various countries. So a lot of those countries that you pointed out before, hold on.
Here comes the Pfizer talking points, y'all.
In the world by far.
I think there are a lot of factors that may go into that. One of them is the fact that we are disproportionately obese as a society. We have the negative health outcomes that you've been talking about. We don't go outside as much as countries, say in Africa. I mean, there are a lot of different factors that may play into that.
SARS, H1N1 are in no way, shape, or form as fatal and as disruptive as COVID was. And you weren't here at the beginning, so I'm going to give you context for the statement. She's saying, what are you going to do if the next pandemic happens? I was simply pointing out that the world has never seen a pandemic like this since the 1700s. We're not saying that there isn't a flu. The flu is technically a pandemic. We're not saying that. What we're talking about is a specific issue. The kind of fatality and the means of communicating this virus is something absolutely unique. And for her to waste 15 minutes of their show when there are real issues in the world is extremely suspect to me. I thought, to be honest with you, that all of us were handling the COVID thing the same way we handled the Russiagate thing, where we said this was largely a media-created hysteria that somehow, strangely, ironically, coincidentally, benefited the richest people on the planet. Okay, I read something where there were like 125 new billionaires that came out after the pandemic. So normal people got destroyed economically, and the elite of the elite of the elite are going to be trillionaires in 5 years because of the largest transfer of wealth we've ever seen due to this pandemic. That makes a lot more sense to me. Makes a lot more sense to me. We continue.
But I will say, did the vaccines work in the way they were initially promised to prevent spread? No, I don't think so, especially once you got to later variants. But we have a lot of data that shows that in terms of reducing severe hospitalization and death, the vaccines were really important. And maybe there was
In what group of people, Krystal? The morbidly obese and the extremely aged. What you're not talking about is a giant gap between 19 and 40 years old where people are contracting myocarditis and dying at rates that we have not seen.
cost-benefit analysis.
I want to see that data. I know that's what the industry says.
There is lots of data, and not just from here, from around the world, that shows the vaccine doses, and not just our vaccines, but ones that were created all around the world, reduce severe hospitalization and death. So in that way, yes, I do very much believe that they work.
And let me tell you something. What I believe you're doing now is you're parroting what the public health agencies have been saying, but they...
Woohoo! Get him! Get him! Yes! Thank God. Finally somebody said it. Who is this guy? I gotta look into this guy. What's his... RFK Jr. Where's my phone? Thank God. Somebody finally said it to their face. I gotta do some research on this guy. I like this guy. And I agree with whoever this V radio person is. She legit full on sounds like an MSNBC or CNN host from 100,000%. 100%. Holy shit. And I'm surprised. I wasn't a Krystal Ball fan, but I was only comparing her to Anna. Please, I'm not disrespecting Anna Kasparian. It's just some of the ways that she carries on, it hurts her credibility. And I think her... she's moving away from the jank stuff, which I think is good. But my point is, I had a lot of respect for Krystal. This one situation is not going to make me lose all respect for her. People on the internet are so freaking extreme. But I am looking at you with the side eye now, Krystal. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking at you with the side eye now. I'm looking at you with the side eye. What about his environmental stances? I don't know about them. Anna Kasparian is exactly like Krystal Ball. No, she's not. You gotta give... Here's the thing. I think Anna is extremely intelligent. I think if we saw Anna away from Cenk, we would see a completely different person. I think she'd be the number one person in news media if she could get away from Cenk. I really, really do. Krystal, on the other hand, Krystal's a lot more... Krystal's a multimillionaire. She's a self-made individual. And I'm starting to figure this out because, we roll in circles of self-made people. But when you were that kind of person, you do have a certain kind of mindset about people. I remember the first time it hit me, I was in some sort of, whatever with a person. And a person said some sort of insult to me or something like that. And I said, Nah, man, I don't have a boss. Nobody tells me where to go or what to do at any time. I show up to work whenever I want and blah, 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 blah. Unlike you. And God said to me, oh, wow, man, you're a big dude, huh? Like, you're a lot better than that guy. That guy's, like, completely beneath you. Look, I mean, you get up when you want. You do whatever you want because you have your own business, bro. Like, you're God's like, man, you're a real big dude. That guy, you sure showed him. And it stopped me in my tracks. And I said, fuck. Because when God says that stuff to me, usually it's not good. And I thought to myself, damn, I got to check myself. Like, yeah, like I'm blessed to be able to work for myself. But I saw that ugly pride, like, So like when you're the type of person that does that, you unless you have somebody in your life, and you know, for me it needs an army, but you gotta have people that are like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're not that big, man. Shut up. Now God did that for me in that moment. It was good, and you know, I had to make that right or whatever. But my point is, when you're a self-made individual, you have to work to not have that assumption that you're above people. So Krystal is she started her own business. She's a very successful woman. But it doesn't seem to me that she feels that she needs to justify her positions anymore. It feels to me like she's like, boom, I'm here, and that's it. This is what it looks like to me.
Do not have a scientific basis for that. And I have another book out that you should look at called Died Suddenly, that goes through all the Johns Hopkins data, which is the dashboard data that everybody uses, and shows exactly what happened when first of all, the vaccine, the Case Western study that is probably the largest, most recent, shows that at most the vaccine gives you a very, very small amount of protection, and that after 7 months, you go into negative efficacy. So you are more, if you got vaccinated, you're more likely to get sick, you're more likely to get severe illness, and you're more likely to die than if you were unvaccinated.
I have not seen that. I have seen study after study that shows the opposite. Listen, I don't...
He just made a reference, though. He talked about Johns Hopkins. I don't know if you... I'm sure you guys know Johns Hopkins is I mean, they know what the hell they're talking about. So for Krystal to just go, like, he's got facts. He's got facts, Krystal. Weird.
I get bogged down in this because I don't think we're...
You don't want to get bogged down in it. You brought it up. I'm sure he'd much rather talk about Ukraine and Russia than this nonsense. Somebody said something about... somebody had said something about, like, his son went to fight in Ukraine and didn't even tell his dad because he knew he was against the war. I mean... That's a guy that is really anti-war. Because the relationship I have with my son's like, if they were going to strap up and go into harm's way and not tell me, like, I can't even imagine a universe in which that's real. But here we go. I don't know about Marianne Williams supporting the Ukraine war, though. So somebody can, Apple, if you can validate that, that would be great.
To see eye to eye here, and we have some other questions we want to get to, and your time is short. But we'll put in post, you know, please send us what you're looking at.
Yeah, we're happy to
We'll put what
I'm
looking at, and people can judge for themselves. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now.
That was a disaster. That was an absolute and complete disaster. I really don't have a lot more to say. Other than I don't know what's going on with Krystal here. I hope she addresses it on tomorrow's show because there's been a lot of energy around it, but I can't even begin to, you know, I mean, the most obvious thing is people are going to say, okay, you're in the pockets of Big Pharma or you're in the pockets of the establishment because this interview, it could look like the people that the groups that benefit would be Big Pharma and the establishment Democrats, but I think that internet consumers of political content are now so much more sophisticated than the people that are running the news are giving us credit for, and because of that underestimation, they think they can get away with shit like this, but they really, really can't. That's the issue, is that the people that are consuming this type of media are a lot more engaged and sophisticated than their parents were. You know, our parents, no disrespect, they would just sit down in front of the TV and whatever the newscaster said, that was it. Just went along with it. Now, there was one exception in my life, and that was my mother. But my mom would correct the pastor when he was preaching. So I was always like, nah, Ma, you know how Ma is. She's always... But for the most part, consumers of media back in the day, no disrespect to the older generation, but they would just sit there and just, oh, okay, that's what it is. The sky is purple now. Who knew? And they just go along with it. That's not what's happening in this generation, man. Like people are giving the finger to that kind of media. The problems with vaccines when it comes to situations like this, vaccines can't stop variants or cover the changing mutations. Yeah, that's not the problem. The problem was these people told us that the vaccine would stop the spread and the communication of the virus. That's the issue, which was a lie. And it was a lie that they knew was a lie, which is why Pfizer tried to have the reports redacted 75 years into the future, where all of us would be dead by that point. All right. This right here is really, really unfortunate. There really isn't later V Radio. There really isn't much more I can say about this. I don't know if she's gonna post something on Twitter. My belief is that if you committed the error on video, then you need to fix it on video. If you committed it on a tweet, then you need to fix it on tweet. Whatever medium that you communicated in, that's where the retraction should be. So that's my opinion on how these things go. I agree with you, Jim. There's still a bunch of headliner readers out there. What I'm talking about is not the headline and saying, oh, that's what happened, but more of just taking at face value what the talking head in your screen says as just fact and no longer questioning it. Those days are gone, and I think that's why network media is falling by the wayside, and it's probably going to disappear in 5 years. Oh, hey, Ian, thank you. Ian, our latest patron. I appreciate it, my brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. His environmentalism is he's about stewardship and sustainable farming. Okay. See, that's the other thing about the environment. You know, environment thing wasn't really important to me. But when I think about, like, listening to a lot of, like, really crazy, we need to take care of the planet people, or reading the Green New Deal stuff, if we could find somebody that has some sort of like rational, non-alarmist way of saying we still need to care for the environment, I would love that. The Al Gore stuff where the world is going to melt in 4 years, like, I don't have time for that shit. My thing about the environment is, one, God gave it to us, and we have a responsibility to beautify the planet, not destroy it. That's one. And two, the scripture says very clear in Revelation that God, when he returns, he comes to destroy the destroyers of the earth, the scripture says. So this idea that we shouldn't take care of the planet is ridiculous. What I have a problem with is the hamstringing of human industry, right? For the sake of the planet. I think we're supposed to advance scientifically. We're supposed to study more. We're supposed to engineer more. We're supposed to experiment more, which is why I love Elon Musk shooting rockets up into space. I don't care if they fail, because at least he got farther than all humanity has put together before him. Like, I don't care if he fails or not. I believe that humanity, we should continue to get better, get wiser, take in the accumulated knowledge of the billions of people that came before us. And continue to do that. So if somebody can find a way to care for the environment while still having that would be perfect to me. So this guy sounds like a very balanced, rational individual that because of this discussion, I'm going to take a real serious hard look at. I'm very happy that he told her to her face that she was parroting stuff. The fact that he isn't the point man for the Green New Deal is just weird to me. I don't know, Sadie, what his bona fides are, but you can bet your bottom dollar if Sadie respects this guy environmentally that he's on his shit. So that's another good question. Shout out to AOC, but I understand AOC being the face of it because I get it. You know, she's a millennial. She's, you know, I understand that part about it. But as far as like the nuts and bolts of the thing, it sounds like he's got the kind of mind where you want that guy at least in the consulting committee. But hey, we'll see. Okay. Much love to all you beautiful people. He's pretty intense in his views of corporate pollution. Hopefully that's good. Much love to all you beautiful people. Stay safe, guys. It's a jungle out there. Stay safe. Love each other. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are.